Hello, Canada, and welcome to another episode of the Maple Pill. As always, I'm your host, Matt McKeever, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really had good intentions on tonight's episode. I just wanted to do a white pill episode. I was just going to focus on positivity. I wasn't even really going to touch on any highlights in the news in regards to what's going on with the trucker protests here in Canada. But literally, just as I was checking Twitter, just kind of killing a couple minutes before the broadcast here started, I saw that it's been announced that GoFundMe is now not going to release the additional $9 million that was raised for the Freedom Convoy here in Canada. And this is really concerning for a multitude of reasons. Unfortunately, I don't have a link in the video description down below for you guys to go check out, but I encourage you, go read into it. There's a Medium post that's being circulated. There's a couple other sources as well currently making their way around on Canadian Twitter. But this is a really big deal. And I also just saw a different tweet that said Spotify had just removed 70 episodes of Joe Rogan today. We're in the middle of a culture war. It's literally, it's extremely difficult for me to interpret it any other way. And I shared a story recently on my main Instagram account, my Matt McKeever 85 Instagram account, which is mainly real estate investing and a little bit of NFT and crypto stuff and things of that nature. And, you know, I think this one post cost me maybe 50 or 100 followers, but it's important to understand at this moment in time, I only see three types of people. I see fascists, I see cowards, and I see freedom fighters. And to be honest, that middle group there, you can reframe it if you don't want to call it cowards. You can call it naive or, uninformed individuals. You can call it indifferent individuals. You can call them survivors, whatever you want to frame it as. But understand that there's literally a culture war being fought day by day right now in North America. And if you're not standing up, if you're not speaking out, if you're not speaking truth, if you're not willing to ask hard questions in order to get to the bottom of the truth, understand that you're in that middle group at best, and you're a fascist at worst. Everything that we've got here, all the abundance in North America and Canada and the US and all that, that's due to the ability of individuals to act with individual autonomy, right? It's the free market, it's free choice, it's the freedom of speech. I can't believe that we find ourselves at this moment in time where, throughout last summer, Black Lives Matter was able to raise as much money as they wanted without being shut down. And now we find ourselves at the point where Canadian truckers and the Freedom Convoy are being painted with such a negative brush. Earlier today, Ezra from Rebel News, he put out a tweet saying that he'd heard that the federal government had stepped in and told Ottawa hotels in the downtown center area to not rent out any more rooms, that the Canadian government would reimburse them for that. If that turns out to be true, understand that literally your government is taking your tax money to fight against protesters. And it's also stepping in to make sure that those protesters cannot have money in order to protest peacefully. There has not been any significant violence. There has not been any significant white nationalism in any of these movements. And it is wild at this moment in time to see our government acting in such bad faith. Now, those of you that maybe have been down the blue pill, red pill, black pill, clown pill, white pill journey before, maybe it isn't that big of a surprise. But I swear 2 years ago, this would have blown my mind, the idea that we find ourselves in this position at this moment in time. And those of you that are inclined to stand up and speak out, now is the time to do so. Those of you that have been doing so up until this point, please continue to do so. This is important. This will be remembered, years from now, decades from now, your children, your children's children, they may or may not know what freedom is based upon what happens here, not just in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, but for the next couple of years. Even if magically tomorrow the federal government was to back off, even if magically tomorrow GoFundMe reversed their decision and allowed the individuals that donated that money to the trucker convoy to see those funds be used by the trucker convoy, that still wouldn't magically solve everything. This is something that, obviously I'm no expert on this, but in my opinion, for the last 4, 5, maybe even 6 or 7 decades, a lot of us that have been live and let live, we were literally doing that. And we weren't noticing the corruption, the infiltration of all of our institutions by individuals that have Marxist sympathies, that have fascist sympathies. Frame it however you want, but they're statists. They believe in the state and the greater good, and they essentially believe that the ends justifies any means. And we're watching this play out in real time, in my opinion. This is history in the making. And I said it on my Instagram story last night, but like, I get it. I actually realistically, while I would like to pat myself on the back and say I'm a freedom fighter, I've probably up until this moment in time mainly been a coward or focused on being a survivor. A big part of why I bought the Citadel, moved out of the cities, and decided to go in the middle of northwestern Ontario is I was concerned that while I didn't think, we were going to see the end of the world as we know it likely, it was probably a higher probability than I had personally experienced at any point in my time in my life up until the present. And I want to be white pill. I promise after I get this monologue off my chest that we'll pivot into some white pill stories and some white pill moments. But I just want to say that we need to speak out against this. And this is not acceptable. And understand that even if you completely disagree with the Freedom Convoy, even if you think that the truckers are white nationalists, understand at some point in time, your side, right? Whether you associate yourself as a statist, a leftist, a progressive, it doesn't matter. The same rules, the same justifications that we're seeing right now implemented and essentially assaulting free speech and the ability to protest here in Canada, we're going to see that roll out to apply to everyone eventually. That's how this tyranny works. There's that classic speech from the I believe it was a Protestant or Lutheran pastor who was in Nazi Germany, and he talks about first they came for the Jews and I said nothing, then they came for this group and I said nothing, then they came for this group and I said nothing, and finally when they came for me, there was no one left to say anything. We are literally watching that in real time as we see mainstream corporate press, legacy media literally try and push and censor Joe Rogan, who has the largest podcast in the world. He's got the largest platform right now. Imagine a world where he's not able to do what he does. Understand that he's often moving the overturn window, right? So what's acceptable speech? If it wasn't for Joe Rogan and some of the other larger podcasters out there, that window would be so narrow right now that the only thing that you'd be allowed to say or speak or do on social media or in the mainstream press would be exactly what the government propaganda is. And while I've got no disillusions that, the past was some perfect moment in time or that we were wildly freer, odds are that we're just wildly more aware of things because of the internet, because of the free flow of information. But this is important. And this is a cultural civil war. I don't know what else to call it at this moment in time. And again, if you guys think that I'm overreacting, let me know in the comment section. Call me out on it if you think that this is bullshit. But this is unacceptable in my opinion. And unfortunately, I suspect that this is just the tip of the iceberg. But let's get on to our regular scheduled planning. And I had a bunch of white pill items that I wanted to share and discuss with you guys today, and I'm still going to do that, although there may be tinges of black pill throughout this now. But let's jump into the screen share, and essentially what I put, and you guys will find it in the video description down below, just like with every other day that we do this show, all the links are in the video description down below. And so today's goal was I just want to share with you resources related to, building intentional communities. If you're so inclined to becoming a prepper or a homesteader or just focused on getting more connected with your community, your food, and those around you. And understand that while, at least in my opinion, we're in the middle of this cultural war, civil war right now, we actually still do have a lot of power. It's only the participation of the masses of us, right, that 90% in the middle that allows this to continue. And so we actually do have a lot more power, both to make sure that our individual situations and our families and our individual communities are on a better trajectory for tomorrow than they are today, in addition to actually being able to influence things at a provincial and federal level. And so, again, if you've been straddling the fence, if you've been thinking, I'm just going to focus on making more money, and I hear that from a lot of my peers as well as a lot of my followers, that Why cause this trouble, Matt? Just make more money. You can buy your way out of anything. If you truly think that you're somehow going to be able to buy your way into the elites, and you know me, understand that like you're not actually nearly wealthy enough, right? You don't have the pedigree, you don't have the history. I'm going to try and keep from going down any rabbit holes on conspiracy theories, but you're not going to get yourself into that room. Just understand that. That's something that takes usually generational wealth in order to accumulate and establish that sort of power. And it's naive, it's foolish, it's childish, in my opinion. I want to live in a world where it's a meritocracy, where people can rise above, where they can improve their lot in life. But if you're constantly focused on just turning to the state for all your solutions, you are a statist. You are going to eventually find yourself slipping or falling down that slippery slope towards fascism. And a lot of us, again, that have been live and let live, shame on us, including myself, for letting it get this far. But thank you to every single Canadian that's standing up and speaking out. And again, just understand that you're in a lot more control than you have a lot more control of your life and your trajectory than you realize. But sometimes it means making hard decisions, right? For myself, I sold all my real estate over the last year and a half. I sold all my businesses or gave them away or handed them off to business partners because I realized I needed to be untethered so that I could speak freely without worrying about consequences. What would an investor think if he hears Matt rambling on about conspiracy theories or black pills or about a cultural civil war? I don't care. Yeah, I'm free range now. And those of you that find yourselves, chained to a job, chained to what you believe to be a geographic location, it's time now to challenge yourself and challenge your preconceived notions about where you are in life and what your trajectory is. Understand that the reason that I decided to make a hard pivot wasn't just because I wanted to make sure I could protect me, but it's because I wanted to make sure I could protect me and mine and ours. And essentially what that means to me is the idea of when I look towards my nieces and nephew, they're all under the age of 10. I am truly concerned that they will not grow up in a similar type of environment than I grew up in. And again, I'm not putting the past on a pedestal, but I truly believe that whatever I worked hard at, I could achieve, that I can improve my lot in life, that I could go from insert whatever class you want to identify my family as to climbing that ladder a couple more steps. And I was able to. I was the first person in my family, to go to university and graduate university. First one to get like that white collar, that white collar job in corner office, get my CPA license, right? Get professional designation, be able to build up a real estate portfolio, be able to start businesses and employ other people. And I truly don't think that my nieces and nephew, if we Canada, if we the West continue on this trajectory, will be capable of doing that. And it's important that we speak out now and we stand up, because if we don't, eventually we're going to find ourselves in a situation where there's no one to speak up. And that's the darkest timeline as far as I'm concerned. So let's talk about some white pill things that you guys can focus on to maybe help you feel like you can get in better position to be in control of your life. So if you want to learn about real estate investing, personal finance, all that stuff, go check out my Canadian real estate channel. Link in the video description down below. Again, we've shot thousands of hours, if not maybe like 10,000 hours worth of content at this point in time. I was really focused on making sure that Canadians and just my peers could build their financial fortress of solitude in the hopes that they could go on and do bigger and better things. So again, get your finances in order. That's definitely one of the cornerstones on Maslow's hierarchy of needs in order for you to feel like you're on strong footing. And it's because of the position I find myself in that I'm willing to speak out. So, but speaking a little bit more on the prepper, homesteading, survival angle, I want to share with you guys a bunch of different resources. So this is a great blog, a great resource, survival blog. Again, link in the video description down below. And what I find really helpful about this is when you first decide to maybe start getting into preparing for supply chain issues, for preparing to grow your own food or become more self-resilient or self-reliant, it often can feel very overwhelming. And one of the first things they focus on here is let's make a list about the list of things we need to do. And so, for example, you can see things like water list, food storage list, food preparation list, a personal list, first aid or minor surgery list, nuclear defense list, biological warfare defense list, gardening list. Again, understand that's in no particular order. I personally would reprioritize the way this list is put together, but it can be very helpful to start with a list of just the different lists that you're going to need to make, or the different things that you're going to want to research and learn about and get a better understanding of. And it actually goes through a pretty thorough breakdown of some of these subcategories in order just to help get you more familiar. They've been creating content since 2005. So again, there's tons of great resources there. I encourage you guys, dive deep into it if you're so inclined. Next, what I wanted to share is, if you're more on the spectrum of like, hey, what if we have to rebuild society? What if what if for a couple of years the supply chain is really severely compromised? Well, open source ecology is absolutely amazing. And essentially, I should have highlighted here their mission statement, but essentially their goal is to allow communities to be able to get the tools, the resources, and the knowledge necessary in order to make your communities self-reliant, right? In order to insulate yourself from macro supply chain issues. So whether we're talking about 3D printers to engines and machinery that can be used for multiple different uses. And what's also fantastic is everything's open source. And in addition to that, they're very focused on being cost conscious when doing this stuff. So again, it's really fascinating to kind of get deep into everything that they've broken out here. I really encourage you guys to check it out. You can see that this is the global village construction set that they've got right here. So again, from being able to 3D print small parts, to being able to mill wood, to being able to produce power through a multitude of sources, there's a lot of great stuff in here, and it certainly seems more relevant than ever before, in my opinion. And okay, yeah, this is what I was also looking for here. So they literally have like their entire shopping list as well. If you want to go all out and literally build a self-sustainable community, they've done a lot of the initial legwork. And if nothing else, you can really take a lot of inspiration from this. So again, encourage you guys, check out open source ecology. And unfortunately, probably tonight's all these white pill stories and resources I want to share with you, they're probably going to take on a slightly darker tinge than I originally intended, simply because of those news highlights that I wanted to share with you guys. But is what it is, I guess. Then I wanted to share the Permaculture Apprentice. And this is fantastic. If you guys have never heard about permaculture, if you've never heard about things like earth ships or getting more connected to your food, this is a great jumping off point. And again, this is literally like a free book, essentially, that's been written on the subject matter with tons of resources, tons of videos, written content, podcasts, courses you can listen to, really breaking down how to understand how to build a sustainable food system for yourself, for your community, or just even for your individual homestead. And speaking about homesteads, if you guys haven't checked out Justin Rhodes, he's got one of my favorite YouTube vlogging channels focused on homesteading. It's amazing just watching him and his family grow and become more and more self-reliant as they continue to transition. And so what they've got is a 10-acre homestead that they've been improving. I believe it's been in his family for an extended period of time. And again, it's just really amazing to see the different projects and experiments he takes on. They're very transparent and just authentic people. So again, I really encourage you check it out. And so what I've linked is just a great summary video that talks about it. It's a 2-hour video, so I know it's a little long, but it's definitely a worthwhile watch. I find it very entertaining. It's very educational. In addition to that, it's just great vibes. So if I end up leaving a bitter taste in your mouth tonight after this white pill, go watch Justin Rhodes' video here. Absolutely fantastic. And speaking about other individuals that are positioning themselves to be very resilient, the urban farmer Curtis Stone, he's a Canadian as well. He's also been a vocal supporter of the Freedom Convoy, and he's got all kinds of interesting projects he's undertaking and building out different systems, and also interviewing others and exploring different ideas and approaches to building out your homestead, to building your parallel institutions. Because I think we're starting to see really how much we can trust our existing institutions, and it's more relevant today than ever before. And then if you want to really start thinking about end of the world as we know it, right, when shit hits the fan, you've got the Canadian Prepper. And again, I find him to, well, his content is obviously going to be focused on a certain angle. I think he's actually very balanced in the way he presents a lot of his information. There's definitely some of these videos that are a little bit more listicles or a little bit more clickbaity, but when you get into some of the deeper videos he's put together, I find them to be really well done. And again, what's great is it's Canadian resource. He's also got a store that sells a lot of prepper equipment and resources, so I encourage you to check it out. Again, seems like overall a very authentic guy. And I think that this is just a great little snapshot of some of the YouTubers, if you're looking to start following people that are really taking action to make sure that their families are going to be in a better position tomorrow than they are today. I'd start with these three individuals. Again, I'd love to hear, who are you guys following? Who do you really enjoy? Who's producing content and just sharing and documenting what they're doing in order to prepare for any sort of volatility that we may experience in society? And then just wanted to highlight this. There's no way I could put together a white pill story segment without at least bringing up some Bitcoin. But I just wanted to highlight for you guys Bitcoin Beach. If you haven't heard of it, it's essentially in El Salvador, and it's a movement really trying to help El Salvador's local businesses and individuals get off of the fiat standard and onto a Bitcoin standard. And they've done some great things from my understanding. I've seen multiple Bitcoiners that I really respect talking about this project. But again, El Salvador, just as a whole, their country is really leading the charge on the international stage in regards to adopting and embracing Bitcoin. I find it very encouraging. And, the fact that essentially their president on Twitter is smack talking IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I just really hope he never gets assassinated. But I think he's doing great things. And again, obviously, no one's perfect. No country's perfect. So I'm not trying to put them up on a pedestal, but they really are leading the charge here in regards to Bitcoin. And for those of you that are maybe thinking about becoming expats, well, I'd be sad to see Canada lose you. I definitely think you could find worse places to set up other than Bitcoin or other than El Salvador, and embracing what I think is going to become a Bitcoin economy. So again, they're doing some really fascinating stuff, El Salvador, their government, in regards to harnessing volcano energy to mine Bitcoin. In addition, they're in the process of launching a Bitcoin bond. I think that to build a Bitcoin city, really some fascinating ideas. I hope that they all come to fruition in El Salvador and its population thrive and flourish because of Bitcoin and getting rid of the toxic fiat monetary system that we currently primarily use as our means of exchange. Then moving on from this, what I want to discuss or highlight with you guys is just a handful of different individuals or movements that are actually focused on building intentional communities. And so the first one, when I think of this, is the Free State Project. So this is in New Hampshire. If you guys have never heard of it before, essentially the idea was a bunch of libertarians were all going to move to the same state in order to try and nudge that state in a more libertarian or free direction. And again, I've heard great things about it from different individuals that have participated in it. They've got some great resources here that you guys can check out and kind of deep dive into as well. I'd love to hear, what other movements are you guys aware of? Are there any movements here in Canada that are on a similar wavelength as this? It's really important that we start voting with our dollars, that we start speaking out, that we start focusing on building intentional communities and surrounding ourselves with individuals that are like-minded. Because I think it's in isolation that a lot of us become lost and lonely and fearful and scarcity oriented, versus focusing on abundance, where if you're surrounded by like-minded individuals, it's just so much easier to feel positive, regardless about what's going on in the greater macro economy or in the rest of the world. And so speaking of that, I shared it in the video description down below. I think I ended up actually maybe putting in the wrong link, but if you guys Google Building Beartaria Part 1 Foundations, this is Owen Benjamin's creation, his movement, where essentially, if you guys are unfamiliar with him, he was previously a comedian. He was on, various movies and sitcoms and things of that nature. And over the last couple of years, he really went through the blue pill, red pill, black pill, clown pill, and white pill journey. And essentially, he decided to uproot himself and his family from Hollywood and kind of the toxicity that is that entire environment and moved to a plot of land on Idaho. He's now homesteading, building his own intentional community called Beartaria. And I found this part one of this documentary just really motivating, inspiring. There's actually 2 parts now, so I encourage you to go watch both parts of building Beartaria. Again, I find it very inspiring, and definitely there's aspects of what he's doing in Beartaria that has inspired what I'm trying to do with the Problems and Profits Citadel here in Canada. As well, if you guys didn't know, he's actually got the Beartaria Times app. And essentially, the idea here is you can connect with like-minded individuals. They focus really on just posting positivity. So again, there's no real negativity or conspiracy theories or truthers or anything like that shared on this app. This is all just about homesteading, crushing it as individuals and families and communities. And again, there's something really refreshing about that. Now, I only really pay attention to their Canadian communities. They're not super active, but essentially if you join Beartaria and you start posting in it, you'll get connected with a private Telegram group. And I'm a member of that Telegram group. And while there's lots of memes and kind of interesting theory shared there, there's also just a lot of good vibes and good intentions from individuals that are focused on improving their lot in life as well as their families. So I encourage you guys to check that out as well. And then want to highlight, if you guys didn't know, Tim Poole, he essentially is starting his own kind of movement or intentional community in West Virginia. He's calling it, what is it? Freedomistan, I think, is something to that effect. And again, it's fascinating what he's trying to do. Essentially, I think he plans on building a media empire and then building a community or a small village around that media empire and focused on just, creating real reporting, he started his own like fact-checking nonprofit organization as well to try and fact-check the fact-checkers, because as we've covered in previous weeks, I think we know how valuable Facebook's fact checks really are. Now, there's not a lot of information on Freedomistan, and probably the best source that you're going to find for it is the Cast Castle vlog. So I've linked that in the video description down below. There are a couple of videos where they kind of explain roughly what they're trying to do, but from my perspective, being a fan of Tim Poole and his content, I think that it's very much still in its infancy and evolving, but it's really exciting to see it taking hold and him committing to doing this. And again, similar but different to what Owen Benjamin's doing with Beartaria. And then also wanted to highlight, I know I brought this up earlier in the week, but Tucker Max wrote a great series of blogs essentially documenting what he calls Doomer Optimist, which is, preparing for whatever happens, but also making sure that you're still living a good life today. And I think that that's often what gets lost for individuals that maybe first get exposed to the idea of wanting to become a prepper or a homesteader. They naturally start framing it in a view of sacrifice or scarcity, and they don't want to leave the big city. But honestly, when I look at the big cities, right, when I look at what's going on in their culture, when I look at what's going on with their food, right, it's all toxic. It's all a net negative, in my opinion. And so even if the world doesn't collapse, even if, tomorrow things magically get better and all of a sudden the government starts respecting your individual freedoms, your medical choices, even if all of a sudden Canada becomes the freest country in the world, the idea of being more connected to your food, more connected to those around you, more connected to your family or your loved ones, your tribe, that's always going to be a net positive. And so again, I think there's really something to these ideas. And that's why we're seeing a cross section of individuals all embracing these ideas. Owen Benjamin, comedian, actor, Tim Poole, kind of a citizen journalist turned podcaster, Tucker Max, who was kind of the frat tire guy that, spawned bro culture to a certain extent or jumped on bro culture, wrote, I hope they serve beer in hell and stuff like that, and self-funded his own movie. Again, these are a cross selection of different individuals that have all came to a similar conclusion. And again, I would really encourage you guys, link in the video description down below, to check out his article, Doomer Optimist, What I See Coming and How I'm Preparing. And he also shares some great books and additional resources there. So I encourage you guys to check those out. Because one of the things that I have found is a lot of people, when they kind of come to these certain conclusions or concerns, they often go dark and decide that they're just going to focus on them and theirs. And while I can understand and appreciate why they come to that conclusion, I also think that unfortunately it does a disservice to a lot of other people that maybe are starting to have similar inclinations, but they don't really know what resources to turn to. And so that was essentially my original intention behind shooting tonight's White Pill special episode, really just trying to share with you guys some of the best resources I found related to this sort of content. And again, if you guys have great resources, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to find additional great bloggers, great vlogs, blogs, books, all that stuff. And then if somehow you've been following me but didn't know, I'm essentially doing my own version of that, right? And so that's the Problems of Profit Citadel. That's where I'm shooting from right now. This is me essentially giving my Citadel manifesto. And it's only a 4 or 5 minute video. I encourage you guys to watch it out. And essentially in that video, what I lay out is just my concerns that, the mainstream education system is toxic. It's poison. That most of the food that you see in your grocery stores, right? If you're not shopping on the perimeter of the grocery store aisles, that the middle aisles, I think that most of that stuff's toxic or poison, or at least not ideal for you to consume in large quantities. That when I look at the culture, right? When I see the mainstream media, the movies, the television series, Netflix series, all that stuff. Again, I think that stuff, for the most part, is toxic. It's negative. When I see the isolation that's pushed on individuals, right? The idea of just like tune out, disconnect, focus on joining the metaverse, or just go in your pod, eat bugs, own nothing, all that stuff. I really think that that's doing a disservice to humanity. And I think that that's moving humanity in the wrong direction. And so, again, that's essentially what I'm trying to lay out in this manifesto video. And that's why I decided I wanted to participate and try and start my own intentional community. And if you guys want to learn more about it as well, there's a link to the Problems or Profits Discord. That's the best place to get connected with the community, learn more about it. With time, I plan on putting together different, FAQ videos and e-guides and things of that nature, just so I know lots of people have lots of questions and don't really understand what the hell Matt's doing, or, is he gone crazy in a bad way or a good way? The jury's still out. We'll figure it out in a couple of years, I'm sure, from now. But appreciate those of you that are at least giving me the benefit of the doubt or supporting me. If you guys want to check out physically what the property's like, essentially, we put together a long video that's kind of 30-minute tour of the property, just showing the different buildings. Here's one of the sunrises. Again, there's probably worse places to chill out, whether it's into the world as we know it, or we just have a little bit of a bump in our supply chain. And then finally, I haven't found a lot of resources in regards to, like how to build your own like prepper library or your homesteading library. So what I put together is an Amazon wish list, link in the video description down below. And essentially it literally just highlights, I think, the first 50 or 75 books that I bought when I started wanting to build out a library for this community that I'm making. So again, encourage you, there's books on, wild edible plants, books on basic survival and bushcraft, books on canning and, more homeopath focused healthcare. Again, most of these books came recommended from me just kind of diving deep into different blogs and listening to different podcasts and things of that nature. So really, it's just me aggregating information that I found from others. So really appreciate everyone that's kind of blazed the trail for me and made this a much easier journey. And I'm hoping that this video helps you guys on your individual journey, regardless of how you decide to interpret what's going on in the world. I think that there's no excuse for us not becoming more aware of our surroundings, more connected to our food, more connected to those in our local communities, and more connected to our family and loved ones. So that's kind of it for tonight's White Pill special. I'm sorry we started off so black-pilled, and I'm probably a little bit less chipper than I originally planned on being when putting together this video, but I don't know what to say. It's we find ourselves in strange times, but I'm glad that that I can be of service or value to anyone that watches this video to whatever extent I am. And again, I really appreciate those of you that are standing up, speaking out, that are participating, because now is the time, in my opinion. If the government, if the administration, if the elites, whatever you want to call them, if they believe they can continue to get away with what they've gotten away with, if they believe that they can just lock out money, if they believe that they can just demonize anyone that disagrees with them, they will absolutely continue to do that. And so it's important that we make our voices heard, that we stand up and speak out. But at the same time, it's also important that you start maybe planning your own long-term parallel institutions. Maybe it's important that you start really asking yourself hard questions. Is living in the city creating the lifestyle I want, particularly in the COVID era of lockdowns, of mandates, of, you know, constant fear porn being shared in both social media as well as the mainstream media. You know, I always kind of felt like there was adults running the country, and I realized that that's really not the case. That at some point in time, I realized it's just a bunch of imperfect humans that are probably, for the most part, trying to do their best, struggling along. But that also doesn't mean that their good intentions absolve them of the consequences, whether intended or unintended, that they're creating. And the erosion of freedoms is absolutely concerning, in my opinion. And if you disagree with me, that's your right to do so. I think you should be allowed to do so. But you should also understand that I should be allowed to feel the way I feel. I should be allowed to keep my individual bodily autonomy. I should be allowed to continue to seek the truth, right? To try and explore and figure out what the hell's actually going on. So I see a bunch of people in the comment section. We'll quickly hit the chat and then we'll wrap up. And hey, this will be the first video in a while where I don't go over an hour. So everyone gets off a little early. Aislinn says, oh, I'm excited for this one. I was reading a book from 1974 about canning today. Yeah, we've got a pretty awesome library here, particularly between my books and Graham and Aislinn's books and Peter's books. And again, a lot of those came from recommendations from people on my Instagram account, from people in the Problems or Profits Discord. So really appreciate everyone sharing their resources, because it can be hard even just aggregating this information. Tony says, thanks for crushing comforting lies with the red pill. Appreciate it, Tony, and appreciate everyone that's constantly engaging in the comment section. Peter's saying, wow, can't believe Spotify pulled Joe Rogan episodes. Yeah. Again, I didn't have a lot of time to go verify that it was 70 episodes, but the accounts I saw sharing this, I don't see what they would gain by lying. But again, like some of the episodes that I saw that they were saying were deleted, like I'm just like, those shouldn't be controversial people or opinions. Again, maybe it's all a false flag, and it turns out that wasn't the case. Again, I literally like 5 minutes before went live, I'm like goofing around on Twitter. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that story. Ooh, I don't like that story. God damn it, I'm black-pilled again. Basmatic says, we cannot get too negative yet. We have come a long way in 7 days. I'm going out this weekend, and so are a whole lot more. Absolutely. And again, I encourage those of you, whether you participated last weekend, whether you've been participating throughout the last 7 days, or whether you're just thinking about it now, I think that, you know, it's more important than ever before. And again, I'm probably going to keep reiterating that for the coming weeks as the situation develops. No one's got a crystal ball. I don't know how this plays out. It's been concerning seeing the hard pivot in language from the Ottawa police services. Up until essentially like today, it seemed like they were being very rational, reasonable, focused on de-escalating things. And I can't help but wonder if either they got a strict mandate from someone, or whether they literally switched out the individual in charge of that Twitter account. But it definitely feels about a hard 180 pivot that they're doing. And I certainly find that concerning. Kyle O'Connor says, hey, Matt, shot in the dark here, but do you have any vacancies available to rent in Windsor? You do, man. Love you. Love the show. Appreciate the support. As I mentioned earlier, I literally sold all my real estate. So nope, I have no real estate other than the Citadel. Steven says, Matt, I believe you have a freedom fighter longer than you think. Yeah, maybe I have. But again, I should have been doing so much more. And I should have been speaking out more. I should have been pushing harder on it, because this shit's important. It's literally without freedom, right? Without the ability to make your own decisions, to me, you're just a machine. You're just a robot, right? You're just a cog in the wheel. You're literally just an asset of the government and state that they can do as they see fit with. And I'm not designed for that, at least. Maybe I was just raised wrong to believe that I should be allowed to make my own decisions, but damn it, that was how I was raised, and I don't see myself changing anytime soon. Kyle says, Canadian Prepper is great, man. I enjoy his content. Yeah, again, encourage you guys. Check out all the different resources and influencers I shared. I really enjoy all of their content. And I'm sure there's lots more out there that I just haven't stumbled upon yet. Sean Sound says, love Justin Rhodes videos. Yeah, him and his family are just so wholesome. And honestly, like, if you want to get white pilled, I think watching a handful of his videos will absolutely do the trick. Kyle says, Ice Age Farmer is worth a shout out. Okay, cool. I'll check him out. Hagen says, they have frozen the GoFundMe from the Canadian convoy. And if you don't request and refund by the 18th of February, they will decide where to give your money to another charity. Yeah, I appreciate you highlighting that. And I saw a few other influencers that I trust saying you should actually make a chargeback claim against GoFundMe. If for no other reason, then it'll make you feel a little bit better, but also it could fuck with their merchant accounts, at least for a little bit. So, think of that if you're so inclined. Richard says, really solid book recommendations there. I'll definitely pick up a few of those. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'd love additional book recommendations from you guys. Now, I'll admit I haven't read all the books, but of the books I've read so far, I've definitely enjoyed them. And at this stage of my life, I just love having additional books. And worst case scenario is someone else in the Citadel will read them and become better informed if I don't. Adam Skelly, owner of Adamson Barbecue, is rumored to be building something similar to the Citadel in Alberta. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. Appreciate you sharing it, Graham. Again, I'd love to hear about other Canadians that are undertaking similar sort of endeavors, because I don't have a blueprint here, right? I'm figuring out as I go along. I'd love to connect with others that are doing similarly so we can compare notes and share resources. And again, who knows? Maybe down the road we'll set up some trade routes between each other's citadels. Dimitar says, sold all your real estate holdings? Really? Yep, absolutely. Sold everything. Delixon, loved this episode. You're an inspiration, Matthew. Politics have been a handful to watch, except for Pierre Poilievre. What are your thoughts on him, Matt? Certainly, of all the Canadian politicians that are currently in power, right? Because right now there's no PPC members. He definitely seems more balanced and reasonable than anyone else. Now, at the same time, the biggest criticism I'm going to have of him is the same of anyone that's been in power over the last 2 years, is why did it take so long? And so while Pierre was constantly pushing on the loose monetary policy, which absolutely is reasonable, while he almost sounds like a Bitcoiner at times, which I can really respect, he still didn't speak out nearly loud enough, in my opinion, to trying to dial back the tyranny we've experienced over the last 2 years. Again, all this being said, I appreciate anyone that's willing to absorb new information and come to new conclusions and change their opinions. So I would just love to see him come out with a hard statement, similar to what we're kind of seeing from Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan, and just say, like, look, we're done with this. I'm not even sure if this was ever worthwhile, but absolutely at this moment in time, we can come to the conclusion that we're done with this and we're going to go back to normal the same way that we're seeing other countries do it at this point. Understand that this idea of like opening up again isn't super radical, right? Like what blows my mind is literally the government, the politicians, they know that we can watch American sporting events, right? They know that we can see 80,000 people in a crowd at an NFL game with almost none of them wearing masks. And yet in Canada, I don't honestly know what the rules are even now. Am I allowed to have 10 people in my house? Or is that illegal? Or is it 5? Or is it 20? I forget. They constantly change the rules so much. But what I do know is I'm not allowed to sit down in a restaurant, right? Literally, SNC Lavalin, I posted this on my Instagram account. SNC Lavalin does less work, has to show less proof in order to get $100 million contracts, it feels like, from federal governments, provincial governments, and city or municipality governments versus me trying to get a hamburger and sit down in a restaurant. It's so much more than ridiculous. I don't even have the right language in order to describe the bullshit that we're experiencing, and it's completely unacceptable. And, one of the things that led to me buying the Citadel and moving here was me realizing that, like, okay, one of us is crazy. Either society's crazy or Matt's crazy. But either way, us continuously interacting together is probably a bad thing. So I'm going to pull back for a bit and I'll try and catch my breath and gain some perspective. To be honest, society just kept getting crazier. So either that didn't solve the problem, or it turns out, society is legitimately crazy, or my interpretations of things is only becoming crazier. But I really feel like I've had the same bias towards freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness that I've had for the last decade or two. And it really feels like society is the one that's changing drastically. And this should be very concerning for us, right? The fact that they want to start wars in Ukraine, the fact that they're not going to call out China on its human rights violations during the Olympics because we don't want to rock the boat, all these things. And yet at the same time, literally the Canadian government's willing to negotiate with the Taliban in Afghanistan, but won't with its own citizens. And this isn't a fringe minority. And the fact that they're willing to just gaslight us and just cross their fingers that the mainstream media will back them up indefinitely on their bullshit lies. Like, I'm so done with it at this point in time. And, you know, you all should just opt out of the system, buy a nearby property near me. Let's start our own little community or our own society. It's really fucking cheap here, guys. That was one of the reasons I decided to move here. I considered like moving to the Muskoka region or some of the beautiful spots in BC. I realized that, that might price out a lot of individuals that otherwise would like to participate in this. So again, I focused on trying to find an area where land was very cheap, where nature was in great abundance, and where you could still actually find some, not fantastic, but adequate soil in order to grow food. And there's a multitude of other factors that went into me choosing this exact location for the Citadel, but those were some of the big, broad strokes I was focused on. And, low population density was also high on the list because, all you need to do is look at the past. When people get really hungry, they get really desperate. And if we continue to see our supply chain deteriorate, if we continue to see even the mainstream media start framing things as, oh, it's no longer a supply chain issue, it's the shortage economy, as they said in the Economist magazine. Like, so much of this is telegraphed in advance, and yet so few of us are willing to call them out on the bullshit, right? The same way when the Bank of Canada said that inflation was transitory. Anyone that understood anything understood that that was a fucking lie, and yet they somehow just get away with it. And then a year later, they're like, oh yeah, I guess we were sort of wrong. Just like we've been wrong almost throughout this entire process. But don't blame us. We had good intentions. Yeah, I'm done buying it. I'm going to read Peter's here, and then we'll wrap up. Maple Pill now on Spotify. Go follow and leave a 5-star review so we can get the video upload feature. Yes, so if you guys didn't know, now we're on Spotify. I think in order for us to be able to actually upload videos to Spotify, though, and not just the audio files, I actually need a bunch of people to go over and give me a 5-star reviews. And while I was a lot happier with Spotify before I found out about the new Joe Rogan episode deletions, I still think that overall, I think they're still worth supporting. But again, if you hate everything to do with big tech, I will be getting this up eventually on BitChute and Odyssey. We are on Rumble. I right now haven't figured out how to go live in parallel on all those different platforms. So it's the finished broadcast that I'm putting up on Rumble. But again, it goes up the same night, so you guys can always watch it there. And you can always keep in contact with me on my Discord. It'll probably take them a while before they delete that on me. So appreciate you guys. I'm glad to know I'm not alone, and just know you're not alone either. These are crazy, weird times we find ourselves in, but I appreciate you guys for seeking the truth, for wanting to make your own decisions. And again, you're allowed to disagree with me. You're allowed to disagree with my interpretations of things, but I just want you to constantly be authentic, seeking the truth. Because again, to paraphrase Thoreau, more than fame, more than fortune, give me truth. That's it. That's all I want. It seems pretty reasonable. I appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. I hope a lot of you go out and make your voices heard and protest. And we'll be back Monday, and we'll figure out how black-pilled I am by Monday based upon what rolls out this weekend. And if you guys have any great story leads, if you see any information that you want me to cover on the Maple Pill, again, there's a separate channel in the Problems or Profits Discord. Go post in there. And again, I really do appreciate those of you that are trying to help me become more informed, as well as help me create a better show here. So thank you guys. We'll see you on Monday, and maybe it'll be a brighter day then. Thanks, guys.